morning and welcome to another edition of the Chicago 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame. Today we're doing it from a different location. We're doing it from a studio that I have my own podcast, The Conversation with John Conenna. Our guest today has been very generous and kind to do it this way because we normally do it right from the Chicago 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame in Forest Park, where Paul Rowan and the board puts aside the 2 o'clock hour on Saturday for all these great inductees and teams and umpires that are in the hall. It's just a fantastic event. And this gentleman that you're seeing on my screen on October 25th was inducted at the Drury Lane in Oak Brook into now the Chicago 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame. And as I've always told all our other guests and teams, for me, any kind of Hall of Fame, no matter what it is a great honor. And today, it's a great honor for me to bring in Sharif Walker. Sharif, of course, inducted that night. Sharif, thanks. And I'm going to start out. What's going on with you, young man, this morning? And I want to talk a little bit about how you got involved with this 16-inch ball.
Yeah, good morning, John. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate this Zoom call. I mean, everybody's on these virtual meetings these days, so this interview is not that off, right? It's kind of the normal for these days. But I also wanted to send condolences to you and your family. I know that, we needed to do this because of your loss, but I just wanted to make sure that I reemphasized we talked about it the other day, this circle of life thing.
Yes.
Yes. I'm celebrating this week the birth of my first grandchild. And so Jacoby Sharif Lee has entered the world 8 pounds and came into the world open eyes and anxious to hear people's conversation, is very attentive and healthy, 10 toes, 10 fingers.
Yeah.
My daughter's doing great, so they're coming home today. So just celebrating New Year, celebrations of life both ways, and good to be on with you.
And it's Jacoby Sharif, the big little boy. I know when we exchanged the email, very excited for you. Maybe this Jacoby Sharif is going to be that generation of another Hall of Famer in the family.
Hey, we're going to do everything we can
to give right?
the sport, right? You got to do it. You got to do it.
All right. I got to tell you, when I read the bio on you, talked to some people, there was a similarity for me with this. You talk about your father, who takes you, to this park. And this park is not too far from where our office was. We're talking on the northwest side, Potawatomi. I have a travel agency up this way. And it just really hits me because, I feel like you really, truly, truly looked up to your dad. And I love the analogy of the Superman. Which was fantastic. I mean, in the way is, do you really get hooked that first time when he takes you on that cold spring afternoon?
Yeah, I think I probably mentally as a kid was hooked before that, because even my grandfather, who lived in Dallas, Texas, I would go down every summer and visit him. And, WGN is, if not just nationwide, worldwide in terms of how people can tune in to baseball. And we used to sit, and I used to sit on his knee, and we'd watch baseball and watch the Cubs. And, so I had a love for the game already. So just putting that glove on my hand for the first time was like magic. My face probably just lit up. Being able to sit out here with my dad, who's a 20-something-year-old, 6'1" strong man that's out here playing catch with his son, and just having that glove on. Yeah, I was hooked from day one.
I mean, of course, now, we're talking Cubs, we're talking league ball, How did you feel about this? So when you went to this park, it was the 16-inch game that you saw, correct?
Well, I saw both. You know,
Oh,
Potawatomi Park was home to my little league, but also I ended up playing 16-inch there as well. And so it had, I mean, we did everything in that park. They had an ice skating rink in the winter that they put in that park, and uh, football. You know, the goalposts go up and at some point, and I played for the Potawatomi Park. I played for many teams there. I played for the All Stars there, the Potawatomi Park Indians for a year. I mean, you did everything. That was the day. That was the day before cell phones, where you leave the house on your bike and you come home. You leave at dawn and you don't come home till dusk. You know.
you know, thank you for bringing it up that way. And your mom or your dad knew where you were at and didn't have to. Back in those days, there was not going to be 1 million texts in 1 minute. I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm over here. They knew you had a passion and a love for this. Um, I like this thing about the transitioning with the league ball and, of course, the softball. Um, did you have a particular love when you, I mean, which one did you like better? Because I was always afraid to play both. I played them both, but I thought one was going to ruin the other with the uppercut and,
That's what my dad always said, right? Is that you got to be careful with the 16-inch because it throws your timing off and this and that. I never really experienced that. I was always offensively good at both, you know. But the 16-inch game, you know, quick story is my dad and my mom divorced when I was 7 years old. And I tell the back end of that story so everybody's not sad. My dad and mom remarried when I was like 18 years old. So like 11 years later, and are still married and together today. So but in that interim, there was a guy who's like a father to me. I always say I wasn't absent a father. I had two dads that were able to look after me. A guy named Dr. J, James Jackson, that was a CTA conductor, trained conductor, and he had a softball team. He founded a softball team called the Flames when I was 7 years old and started dating my mom. And so, you know, and anybody that's familiar with Howard Street knows it was, you know, that Rogers Park area is not a easy area to grow up in. And so my dad had moved away from our house, and it was a household of my sister, my aunt, and my mom. And so Dr. J would throw me in the car and take me to the park, James Park in Evanston, Potawatomi Park, a lot of parks on the north side. And I would get to see these men out here conversing with one another, you know, having a good time, but also playing 16-inch softball. And this big softball that it was for a 7-year-old to see these guys that would pound this ball 250, 300 feet and and catch it without a glove. You know, people didn't use gloves at all back then. And so
no.
they'd be making amazing catches with their bare hands. And I'd be like, wait a minute, you, you can do this, you can make these kinds of plays without a glove on. And so I would go out there and try it. And, you know, Dr. J would always be afraid that I was going to get hurt in the infield. So he'd send me out to the outfield and I'd go out there and run down balls. And, you know, I think I was hooked at 16-inch by 7, 8 years old and still
Wow.
playing baseball every day, but, you know, playing
So you
16.
you were able to fit in the two, and bringing up James Jackson, it is always great because I mean I would think in the normality of the life, there's always gonna be besides your father and your mother, there's always that one person that you remember as the mentor. I always bring it up to people in my interviews who were some of those early mentors. And, when you say like Mr. Jackson was like a father to you, you must have some splendid memories of. Is Mr. Jackson and your dad still alive?
Yeah, they're both still living. In fact,
Very nice.
Dr. J still plays softball. He's 80 something year old that's still out playing CTA league and pitching. and still playing softball in good health. I see him often. You know, we were on the same bowling team for many years until this year when he kind of cut down a couple of his days of bowling. But yeah, they're both still alive and kicking.
Well, that is fantastic. And again, to have again that mentor that keeps you on the straight and narrow where we need with men and women today in all aspects. That's what I look about it. You just need to be on that. So this is something that, first of all, you had the passion, and then this gentleman comes along and your father and everything else, just that great feeling. Um, when do you start to, what was your position? Let's talk about league ball. Let's talk about softball. What was your position in league ball? What was your position in 16 in softball?
Well, in baseball, my dad taught me to play every position, right?
Okay.
And so little league, I could play anywhere. I played mostly catcher in little league, just because nobody else wanted to do it and nobody else could do it well. When I started playing baseball, organized baseball, I was 7 years old, and I think at the time, well, I was 6 years old. At the time, you had to be 7 years old, and they let me play because they take you out there and they say, "Can he catch?" And of course, my dad had already taught me all this stuff, and so I could catch a ball, I could throw a ball, I could hit a ball, and so they were like, "Sign him up then." And immediately at 6 years old, they put me at catcher, and I had all this equipment on, and it's the first time I ever wore catcher's equipment. And this guy named Mickey Melcher, and I found him on Facebook years later, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I found him on Facebook, but he was a slender kid, a kind of tall, considering we were 6, 7 years old, and he threw to me what was the best fastball I ever seen for a 6 and 7 year old. And I
Sure.
remember the first ball I caught kind of shook all the shin guards that I had on and the big face mask that I had on. Everything kind of just shook. But I was kind of intrigued by it. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm a part of every play. And so I played catcher mostly. I played a lot. I probably played every position on the field in high school and in college. My freshman year, there were two freshman catchers, and I wanted to be a shortstop. And the other freshman catcher in week 2 got ran over at the plate and broke his leg in 2 places. And I was the catcher for the next 3, 4 years in college. So,
Wow. You know, I got to tell you, Sharif, I was an ice hockey goalie my whole life. I came
okay.
from a hockey background. I would rather be a goalie than a catcher.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. What you just talked about, a guy who's throwing the heat, and then can you imagine these foul tips that are coming at you? I've measured the diameter of a battered back to the catcher. You're talking a half inch of a ruler, and these things are like boom, boom, flying all over you. You're breaking this hand because you wanted to keep that hand protected. So I admire the fact that you wanted to get in there at such a young age because it's it's that job of like, holy cow, you better be ready. You're playing 2 games, one the game and one to survive. So yeah.
And
What?
you know how it is when you're starting out. You'll play anywhere. You want to
Yes.
play.
Yeah,
I
you
just
want to
wanted to
play.
play.
You want to
Oh, I got
play.
a catch? No, there's no catcher. Then I'll be the catcher.
I'll be the
I'll,
catcher.
you
Right.
know.
I'll get in there. What was the position you loved in the 16-inch game? This game that now you're inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Oh man, I started out in the outfield, right? And I started out really my very first season at 17 years old, I was a right fielder, right? That's where they stuck everybody to start you out, right? And the
Oh,
the Flames had these great players, these guys that could chase down balls. And so when an older guy from the infield would move on, somebody from the outfield would move in, and that position opens up. And I was 17, and they say go to right field. And to right field I went, and I caught just about everything. So they moved me to center field, and I played center field for just about every team that I played for until I was like 46, 47 years old. So 30 years, 30 plus years as a center fielder.
you
Um,
know what? I mean, you talk about, we'll go back to right field because I started out as a right fielder too in the 16-inch game. And I gotta tell you, Sharif, I used to hate when a righty was coming up and he could go to right and he could dump on me, and that curvature coming off that ball in the right field. It's just playing havoc with you. So again, I know they put you in right, but you got to be ready to go, man. Yeah,
And it's different out there, right? And there was a guy that played on the time in Dunbar Park. With a team called Bustin' Loose, right? That was a lot of guys from the Unknown Wild Bunch, and
right.
Jackson, who's still out coaching in the game with the Pharaohs today. Jackson was probably the first guy that ever hit a ball to me, and he hit balls to right field. He's a right-handed hitter that had power to right field, and he sent me a ball and it had to be hit 300 feet high and 300 feet long, right? Over my head. I got beat. I got beat first time in right field because I had no idea that a right-hander could hit this big old ball that far in right field. And that he's in the Hall of Fame now. And so that was one. So I don't feel bad about getting beat by a guy like that. He was a great player, but I learned a lot about right field, that's for sure.
You learn quickly. I gotta ask you, covering the gaps, being this outfielder, moving around and everything. Were you predominantly through the career of the softball in the outfield?
Yeah, till about 46, 47 years of age. And then I came in and played shortstop for the next 8 years until I started pitching. But yeah, most of my years were in center field with the Flames, with the Young Guns. Yeah, even recently I played with the Alpha Giants, who got inducted a couple years ago. And, they had some young outfielders, and I wanted to go out there and show them that all the stuff that I was talking to them about what they need to do in 16-inch versus baseball,
Exactly.
I don't think they believed I could do it. So I had to go out there and show them this is how you play the position.
These Flames and these Young Guns, these teams you were a part of, have won some really nice championships over the years, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we were one of the first teams to finish. I mean, the Young Guns. When I started with the Young Guns, were a very young team, had just started out, but we had a good team, and so they wouldn't let us play in the under division for the Nationals, and we were like, "What? We don't get a chance to win the?" But we went up, and I think we finished fifth that first year we played in the major nationals. Had some great players on that team that are still, a lot of them still playing.
It is amazing when I do these interviews with guys like you and the guys that, at the hall, when I've been at the hall. I mean, that some guys are still playing and everything else. I'll ask you this question, and we'll go back to the 16-inch game now. Were you the better offensive player or the defensive? What did Sharif Walker bring to the game? Were you a good student of the game? Like if you were playing against me and you says, "Oh yeah, Johnny likes to dump down the left field line." Did you know? Because now I always tell the guys there was no Google, there was no YouTube. You had to remember, hey, we played this guy a couple of weeks ago. He likes to dump. What did Sharif Walker bring to the game?
Yeah, you know, that's a hard question. But I never batted less than the top four hitters on any team I played with. I played with Rack City. I played with Team 23. I played with Young Guns. I was always in the top four hitters. So my offensively, I was a great base runner. I wasn't the fastest guy, but I was a smart, wise, and I would take advantage of mistakes. I was that kind of base runner.
Right.
But the outfield was a chess match to me. I played with, I still think it's one of the best outfields of all time. If Teddy Lowry and Keith Shine, One Dog, those were my left and right fielders. At one time, Tank, who played with the Young Guns, was out there with us, and we had some great outfielders. But one of the things we did was communicate, and we knew those batters. And if there was something they couldn't do, we were going to make you do it. We were going to make you do it. We were going to dare you to do it and try to trick you into doing something that you didn't want to do, knowing that we had the ability to cover that. So we would leave the entire right field line open for guys that couldn't hit the right field line. And they'd still try to hit it down there. And sometimes they get close, but they pop it up just enough where
Yeah.
Teddy could run over there and get that ball. And we communicated about the short ball, long ball. So we knew off the bat which way each other were going, right? If the ball was hit deep to left center and I had the deep left center ball, then Shine knew that I was going to go cover that gap, that he didn't have to worry about that, so that he can get the quick jump on the ball in front if it was hit in front. He didn't have to worry about the deep ball in the gap, right? So it was chess match for me, And I was raised, Dr. J. I mean, we would practice. I thought we practiced more days than we played games. And so he wanted us to hit the cutoff man and learn how to throw to the right side of the base so that you can make easy tags without a
Sure.
glove. And so I took that with me wherever I wanted, wherever I went as a team. Hey, let's make sure that who's the cutoff man, who's the right cutoff man. Are we hitting that cutoff man in a way that he can make the next throw? It was always about the mechanics of the game for me, and applying the skill sets that we had to those mechanics made us that much better.
You know what? Again, and I mean this, perfectly said. I mean, because, you think as the batter, you weren't going to remember the guys who are on the field. And now you do this kind of chess match, that challenge. All right, this guy went over here. I got him. I'm cheating a little bit this way. I'm cheating a little bit that way. But that is the beauty of all you guys who have entered this Hall of Fame on the level. Everybody has told me a story. We have a pitcher that's always at the Hall of Fame. I don't know if you played against him or been with him, Mick Balestri, who Balestri always says, I got to pitch Sharif Walker inside, or I got to watch he outside because he's a bad ball hitter. He remembers parts of the game. And like you just did, I mean, you really broke it down to the point where like, hey, we're going to do this and that. And then to know that you had two other guys out there with you that you knew were going to be covering your back. I mean, it really is. I just hate when people say, oh, what's 16-inch softball? This game is a game of, I'm going to use it from now on. I mean it, Sharif. It's a chess game. You're constantly thinking of what's going on next. Exactly.
Well, you said Mickey Balestri, and I played a lot of years against Mickey Balestri, and I think he would tell you that I was one of his hardest outs. But I think it wasn't because, I mean, he's a great pitcher. He did things with that ball that trick you and throw your timing off. But I always went up there thinking, how is he going to try and get me out? And so and I tell guys this all the time: if you just have one swing in softball, then you're not going to be that good, because pitchers are going to figure out what your one swing is, and they're going to figure out how to get you out. And defenses that are smart are going to play you for your one swing. So I went up there playing the chess match with Mick
Sure.
every time. What's the situation? Who's on base? What is he trying to get me to do, so that I could make the proper adjustment and get the hit that I need in order to keep my team rolling.
No, without a doubt. Let me ask you, you've been in tournaments. You've played with some great guys. You've mentioned so many great guys here today, just in this time that me and you are talking. Is there something that still to this day stands out in your mind from that era that you played of the 16-inch game that you remember, a tournament or a weekend series or a game? The other day I interviewed a guy named Steve Culp, and Culp said to me, John, it's the ones we lost that we remember because we want to play that game now, man. He says to me. So something still stand out in your mind when you're driving down the thing and you're listening to some kind of a song and all of a sudden, man, I wish I could have it back. Something that you want to mention here to the audience.
Man, there are two things that always stand out to me. First, always, I think on the top of my mind is always winning the major nationals, right? As a member of High Y and a pitcher for High Y. And I just had foot surgery that year, and I didn't think I was going to be able to return for the summer. And I was able to get back and be a part of the team. In fact, I pitched the first two games of that tournament, and we beat the 45s with me starting on the mound. And that beating the 45s is no easy task. Beating the 45s in the major nationals, that's something you're going to remember for a long time. But being able to do that is one thing. But you're right. It's those games you lose, right? It's those games you lose because we lost in the championship of the No Glove Nationals, right? A feat not many teams that come from the parks that I play in have ever done. In fact, we're one of two teams to get to the championship round of the No Glove Nationals, and we battled the 45s to death. I mean, I just remember looking around at the players on our team that had given their all, and remembering that day more than anything of how we went up on them. They came back and had a big inning on us, and we didn't quit. Those weekends are the longest weekends in your life, and the energy that it takes to and the fortitude and the heart that it takes to not give up when a team that has a history of winning nationals all over the place is coming at you and beating on you, and you don't give up and you come back and you fight, and you see those guys that are next to you giving everything they have. Those are the games that you remember the most. And we were one hit away from taking the 45s out for the No Glove Nationals,
Yeah.
um, and it's other things at that national. There to I think I want to go back and look at some of the videos that I know a lot of us guys were taking on the side before that game started, when they're out there with bagpipes. They're doing a national anthem and everything, and they got bagpipes playing, and you're like, 16-inch softball, man. It has me out here in the best game of 16, in the highest form of the game of 16-inch, and you got bagpipes playing and fans standing and people on with it was I think a couple tears dropped out of my eyes. Like, man,
Sure.
you played this game this long, and you're at the pinnacle of the game, right? That's where you never forget those things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, very emotional. I mean, you were into this big time. Let me ask you something. When I read through the bio too, something thoughts about Washington Park, because you bring it
Yeah.
up in the bio. It's a park. I think I could be wrong. Is dear to your heart, correct?
Oh, absolutely. If not for Washington Park, I don't know if I'd still be playing. And I say still be playing, but apparently I retired halfway through last season and started coaching. But the brain, once it starts warming up outside, the brain starts thinking other things. But
Yeah.
Washington Park is a haven. It's something that we have a lot of pride in, not just because of the quality of softball, which is good, and it's intergenerational. And a lot of guys dump on Washington Park because they play with gloves on Sunday. But the gloves do something for that park that you just wouldn't find anywhere else. You find 17-year-olds playing with 60-year-olds, 60-plus-year-olds. Like I told you, Dr. J, who's played through his 70s and into his 80s, is out there still pitching, because without that glove, a lot of those guys wouldn't risk injury out there with younger guys in their teens and 20s and 30s. But it extends the ability for these guys who aren't just good softball players, but are mentors to these young kids who are coming up in the park. And that park is not just about softball. That, out of the 15 diamonds that are all active at once, you know that you have not only softball players, but you have their children, you have their significant others, you have parents, you have you have every generation out there barbecuing and feed. You bring your kids to the park at Washington Park, and you put a jersey on them, and they can run around that whole park all day and get fed by other teams who look after each other's kids because they're playing with kids that are on another team, but they're not playing on the same diamond. So they run over there because they're going to play a tag or softball or whatever, catch.
Sure.
And they feed them and they make sure they're safe and they make sure they're not getting any altercations or anything and that nobody's going to take them out of the park. And every once in a while, they'll come carrying them back to your diamond and say he's acting up, and then put
Yeah.
him in a chair and you guys sit down. And
Yeah.
if you're gonna go and run around, then you're gonna learn not to act up, or you're gonna sit in that chair and have to just
Ex-
sit and watch.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But at least you know, I mean, it goes back to you. Here you go out to this park with your dad, and you fell in love. You just don't know. I mean, it just amazes me that they see this. Hey, this is something that eventually and hopefully I would like to do. I got to ask you a
Absolutely.
question. I normally ask this toward the end of our conversation. So, like I says, the Hall of Fame for me at any level is in anything. I don't care if it's marbles. It's special. It's something. It means the world. When you got the call from the board, and I'm assuming it's Paul Rowan, our president, um, were you shocked? Were you like, wow, man? And where were you when Paul makes this call to you?
Yeah, I was in the car. I was driving in my car, and uh I had Paul's number in my phone from other things that we were doing, and his name pops up. And I'm like, Paul's calling. Let me answer, see what he's I know my application's in. Um Maybe he's calling to tell me, you didn't make it. I know there are a lot of guys that don't make it, and he calls and says, hey, I wanted to call you because I wanted to be the first to tell you. And when somebody says they want to be the first to tell you, you kind of go. So I had to pull over. I had to pull over like, man, this sounds
Yeah.
like it's good news, right? And he goes, man, you congratulations. You've made it to the Hall of Fame. And even now the feeling is kind of coming back to me because it's it's one thing to be recognized by your peers, but it's another thing after how old am I? 40, almost 40 years of playing a game that you're recognized for being at the top of that game. You
Yeah.
know, that the sacrifice of not being around your family for
Yeah.
special events.
Yeah. And no, no, and that means a lot, and I thank you for bringing the emotion out in what you just said, because like you said, your children, your wife, whatever the circumstance. Sometimes, yeah, like you said, those weekends we're out there 6 nights a week. Just really well said by you. I mean, there's something else, and I'll tell you, in these 35, 40 minutes here that me and you have been on here this morning, I can see that you've been a passionate guy since you were 7 year old, and again. I want you to know, Sharif, before I end it here today and say something about you, that superhero thing about your what you said with your father from the beginning. I mean, it really hits a chord with me in one of the greatest ways when I've ever interviewed somebody. So just fantastic. And to have a father like you, and by the way, what was your father's first name? I'm sorry.
Tom Walker.
Tom
Yeah.
Walker, and of course, Dr. J here, James Jackson. I mean, you talk about, in a controlled environment, you were on the straight and narrow. And like I says, I thank people also for like this in my life too. I got to say this
John,
about you. Go
hey,
ahead.
I can't leave this out because
No, no, go ahead. Anything you
they'll
want to
jump
say.
on me, right? My mom, because the thing we talked about, the sacrifices of playing in the park. My mom, while she was dating Dr. J, started playing softball, and so she was a pitcher in softball. So she played for, back in the day at Dunbar Park you'd have a men's team, and the men's team would have a correlating women's team. And so we were the Flames, and the women's team was the Burners. And
Oh,
so my mom was a pitcher on the Burners. And she had friends, my one of my good friends from childhood, Maston Buster Lee, who still was playing in the game up until
Sure.
yesterday. He's 2 years older than me, and he was still out there playing the game. And so last year was incredible because both of us pitched for High Y. And back then, his mom and my mom both pitched for the Burners. And so, and my aunt, even that lived in our house, she played outfield for the Burners. So
Tell you,
I
look at
couldn't leave that out.
the influence that Mr. Jackson even had on your mother. I mean, incredible, incredible, incredible. Here, not knowing this man, how motivational this guy was.
Yeah, because she wasn't an athlete. She was not an athlete. So she had to teach herself to pitch and catch and throw
Sure.
because there's nothing she did.
On top of everything.
Yeah.
That last line in your bio says it all about you. And I want to read it to our audience for the people that don't have it. This is about Sharif Walker. Softball was a big part of who I've become today. I love this great game and all of the great people I've met along the way. I hope I have given as much to the game as it has to me. And I got to tell you something, Jacob Sharif, you got a good grandpa here, and he's going to show you the game. And I hope you show this to him when he's 7 years old. That
I will.
on this interview we did today. Hey, listen, man, I really mean it. I want you to come out one Saturday. I appreciate what you did for me to do it this way. I felt a connection with you right away because I could talk baseball all day with you and softball. And I hope to see you one day at the museum. And congratulations on being inducted October 25th into the Chicago 16-inch Hall of Fame. Just listening to your story, Sharif, well deserved.
Thank you, John. This interview was, I didn't know how it was going to go, but I'm glad we were able to do it. It brings back some good memories, some good feelings. So
You got
I
it.
appreciate you.
And I got to tell you, Sharif, in about 2 days, it'll probably be either Sunday or Monday morning, a Monday afternoon. This will go out on YouTube and Spotify for everybody to see. And let's keep in touch. I got your number, you got mine. And for the guys at the hall, you'll be able to see this great interview. And usually I would have a question and answer with guys like Balestri, Franklin, Teen, all those guys. But I enjoyed this one thoroughly also.
Hey, John, quick shout out to the Hall of Famer. Rest in peace, Mike Lee, one of my mentors in the game. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. All right. We will see you next week. Well, we will not. We'll be back on February, I think it is 7th, with our next two interviews because of another commitment next week and the 31st, I think something with the museum. But we'll be back on the 7th. But be prepared to see the Sharif Walker Hall of Fame induction interview by this Monday. Thanks, Sharif.
Thanks, John. Have a good one.
Okay, but have a great day.
You too.